Hi, welcome to this video, and this video is helping clients to troubleshoot. So a particular client has, first of all, an error message. Now, apparently it's the same sample, so this is a very unusual let's say issue, because at one point they test the sample and it says upload complete, too low, dilute less. So this essentially says that this is a very low capsaicin concentration. And then it says upload complete, too high, dilute more. I suppose I should just do a segue and say we are talking about the FoodSense Generation 4 for, in this particular mode, for testing the hotness of chilies. I do have a chili sample here, and I'm going to try and troubleshoot this particular customer's issues using the FoodSense Generation 4, which is in front of me at the moment. But anyway, this is an unusual scenario because they've tested and they get upload complete, too low, dilute less, and then they do it again, apparently, upload complete, too high, dilute more. So it's sort of unusual because it says, at one point it says, well, there's not enough capsaicin in this sample, and the next moment it says there's too much capsaicin in this sample. It's probably worth saying that I have definitely done over 1,000 tests just myself on these kind of mild chilies. Every time I do a test, it gets saved in Djuli. So I can see that I've got a large database of tests. And with that said, when you get too low, the good thing about FoodSense Generation 4 is it's extremely powerful, because every time a test is done, all the data is saved up to the cloud. So these people have what's called a Djuli premium account. So they run their analysis, their sample, and the data goes to the cloud, and they were kind enough to share it with us. So I can see their data. So I look at this data, and if you've followed any of our videos, and you'll see it in a minute that I'll do an analysis. But we're looking for peak 1, which should be about here. We're looking for peak 2, which should be about here. And we're looking for peak 3, which should be about here. And I see none of those peaks. There's no capsaicin in this sample, but this is interesting because there'll be another retest in a minute and suddenly the capsaicin appears. But molecules appearing and disappearing is not, this is not some magical thing. The molecule is either there or it ain't there. There you can see no capsaicin, but we can sort of we at ZP we can drill through their data. The powerful thing is we can see their data, so it's important to see that if you're using the FoodSense Generation 4 and you get an error message, so it says here upload complete, too low, dilute less. So I've got that error message here, or if you can call it an information error is a strong term. It's actually informing you what to do. But don't just go on to test. Go up to Djuli and look, and you say to yourself, where is my peak 1, my peak 2, and my peak 3? Now, if you're not clear what that is, that we do have lots of videos on YouTube about the peaks for capsaicin. And then we analyze it, and it's just, there is no peak there. But please wait, because I'm going to show you some other data in a minute, and you'll see that you'll be able to contrast it. And then I'm able to also test what their dilution factor is, and I can see their dilution factor is 10. So the Sense It All is good because actually it will give you a result there and then. It will also give you guidance there and then. And also, you might as well, rather than just storming forward, actually go up and have a look at the data as well, because I'll show you something, that's more typical. So I think later on they then tested, they say the same sample, but when they do this one, they get upload complete, too high, dilute more. So upload complete means the data went to Djuli. Too high means there's essentially too much capsaicin in that sample, and dilute more. And then again, they've got a Djuli premium account along with their Sense It All, FoodSense Generation 4, and I can see that is an intense peak. There it is. It's flat, and then there's their peak 1, their peak 2, and their peak 3. So apparently they tested the sample earlier on, there was no capsaicin in it. And then they test the same sample later on, and there is capsaicin in it. That is a very, very, very unusual circumstance. Again, and then when the system analyzes it, you can see it's finding this nice clear peak. That is, boom, there is a peak there. And I know that their dilution factor is 10, but I can see that the equipment has said, okay, so they've gone from too low on the same sample to too high on the same sample. It's not like in the first test, there were no capsaicin peaks. So I'll try and do a demo to kind of maybe, try and figure out what is going on here. So what I will do is the first thing that can happen, and now this has happened in the past for this particular client, is what I'll do is I'll take a sensor. I've actually got a liquid on that sensor at the moment. This is not the best way to do things, but I'll take a sensor, I'll put it in there. Now this is not what this client's doing at this moment, but I'll just show you a kind of scenario, and then I will just go. I'll call it blank. Blank. Go. All right, and now you can see the sensor in there. I'm doing something on purpose. This is not so much. This client has done this in the past, but they've not done it this time. But I'll just show you something that could go wrong. And now it's analyzing the data, and it says upload complete, too low, dilute less. Now let me stop for a second there, because what I want to do is I just want to go to Djuli, which I realize I've logged myself out of, but give me a second while I log myself back into it. So I'm just logging back in now. I'll just share my screen with you. Yeah, which is screen here. So I call that sample blank. And so it's giving me this error, and the error again is upload complete, too low, dilute less. So I'll go up there and I'll just check on myself. I was like, oh, that's a bit weird. Let's have a quick look what's going on here. Well, that's weird. Now this time round the client hasn't done this, but look at this. Now I did this on purpose, and I just want to kind of give people a heads up so they don't do this necessarily. But I have noticed in the past this particular client has done this. I put the sensor in there, but I didn't. And now the client hasn't done this, but I just want to give people a heads up that you may do this. When you see your data like that, I'm just going to listen to this now. I didn't click that into place. So I'll click it down, I'll click it up. That is not the root cause of this particular person's problem. But you can, if you get, an error message like that, I would quickly go up and actually, if your data is looking like this, then essentially you didn't close the device, and there wasn't an electrical connection, and right, so it hasn't basically analyzed anything because there wasn't an electrical connection. But I fixed that problem now, so that's not the problem this time. Now what I'm going to do now is I'm going to dig in a bit further to what their problem, let's say, could be. So what I will now do is take out that sensor. I'm going to, and I'm sorry, I'm preparing samples in real time. And I realize, oh yeah, I've got some pipettes here, good. I want to grab 100 microliters of a chili sauce here. So I'm going to grab 100 microliters of their chili sauce here, of a chili sauce here. Here it is, quite viscous. Now, when I've last watched a video from this particular client, they didn't have these styles of pipettes. So hopefully they do have pipettes that now have, for example, have 100 microliters. Right, so I've got my 100 microliters here. I will put it into this vortex tube. Right, which I've now done. Excuse me while I just grab 900 microliters. Just trying to find a... I just need to grab a pipette tip, so give me 1 second. Right, I've got the pipette tip. And I'm just going to put in 900 microliters into this sample, which I've now done. It's probably important to work on this scale because otherwise you're just wasting material. So you can see the suspension now. I've got my vortexer in front of me. because I'm doing a demo, a live demo or a live recording, I'm not going to necessarily spend as much time vortexing this, but you know, for something like this, sometimes 30 seconds is just enough to get that. Right, so now I have it. Now I'm going to put a clean, sorry, I'm going to put a fresh sensor onto the unit. I've already got sensors out, so I didn't need to grab those ones. Right, let me grab a sensor. Right, I've got my sample here, and I will, in fact, what I can, I will, what I'm going to do is, I'm going to grab 50 microliters. I'm going to grab 50 microliters, but just notice, I've got my sample here, I've got my buffer here. I'm going to make, first of all, I'm going to give this a name. I'm going to call this deliberately, not blank, but I'm going to call it buffer. All right, so I called it buffer. I'm going to make a deliberate mistake, because this is what I think might have actually happened here. So I'm going to pretend to take my sample, but in fact I'm going to accidentally take the buffer instead. So I'll take the buffer. I'll put the sample on the buffer onto the sensor. Just made a mistake, you know, I wasn't thinking, I was just going quickly. And then I'll go continue. I'll make sure that I choose the 1 in 10 dilution, which I will do just by going like that. Then start the measurement. And off it goes. And let's see what we get. You won't be too surprised by the message that I get. So it's processing it, right? Okay, now so what does it say? It says upload complete, too low, dilute less. So it was the same message as last time, but when you get these messages, rather than just sort of accepting them as blank, you know, just accepting them as is, you know, you can do actually a little bit of investigation. So again, I'll just share my screen. Let's just go up there and have a quick look at that. And I'll just do a quick refresh here. So I can see my data here, buffer. And I can see a very unevent, you know, well, where's my peak 1, my peak 2, and my peak 3 for capsaicin? Where is it? Well, it's not there because I put on a buffer. You know, so it's basically just sort of, you know, and you can sanity check yourself. You know, you can just look there and say, so there's a moment where you are involved with checking the quality sometimes of your own, let's say, work, because I can see there's nothing there. There's, you know, I've got to troubleshoot this. Now, in that case, I did something myself, which was, you saw me, I took the buffer and I put it on there. So you can end up with very flat, uneventful signals here, which is the region that we're analyzing, because in fact somebody, and it's no criticism of people, this happens, you know, I've obviously done it myself, you know, that, you know, but that's what can happen. So let me go forward now with a bit more of a demo, because now I like, oh, now I've realized actually, oh, I must have put the buffer on there. That's a bit silly of me. Okay, no sweat. All right, I'll take my sensor out. Bit of a shame, but okay, we've done it. So let's move forward. Let's put the sensor on. Let's close it up. And what I'm now going to do is put the sample actually on. I'm just going to vortex the sample. So I'm vortexing it because these kind of samples can end up settling. They're quite heterogeneous, so I'm just kind of homogenizing it. I just want to kind of go done. I'm actually just going to call this, I'm going to call it B10. B because I've labeled the sample that, and B and 10 because that's the dilution that I'm using. So I've just labeled that B10. It's just so I can sort of identify that later on. Right. Now, again, I'm going to put 50 microliters onto the sensor. Right, and I'll go continue. That was a 1 in 10 dilution, so I'll make sure I chose that, and then I go start, and off it goes. So it's running. Right, and I did this on purpose, okay? Just please understand I did this on purpose because I wanted to simulate essentially their errors. And now I've actually got upload complete, too high, dilute more. And I'd chosen that sample because I knew in the end that it would throw that error. But what I can't quite explain is how that they can take the same sample and get too low and then too high. It's just when I look at their too low data, there is no capsaicin in that sample. When I look at their too high data, there definitely is capsaicin in their sensor. And I can actually simulate that or not simulate it, I can reproduce that. If you can reproduce something, by the way, that's one of the foundations of science. And it's also and science I would sort of suggest sometimes is the foundation of understanding. So let's just have a quick look at this. There's the B10, up it comes. And we've got an intense peak here. Now their peak was actually flatlined, but we've got an intense peak here. And actually I noticed that peak there was about 8 and theirs was about 10. So we're in a kind of similar region as them. Now what I want to do now is, I've got this sample. This sample is that 1 in 10 dilution. So when you get this, you can essentially troubleshoot yourself in real time now. Because when I look at this, I can see my peak 1, I can see my peak 2, I can see my peak 3. I can actually see they flatlined here. They were just a bit higher than me, but only just. And in this particular region, I think they were peak height was about 10, ours is about 8, so we're about 80% their hotness. I'm going to take that sensor out, and I'm going to put a sensor in. And then what I'm going to do is actually just grab 100 microliters of that. 100 microliters of that, which I will now do. So let me just what I actually want to do is I want to just I'll name this B100s because that will help me identify it clearly later on. That'd be good. Here's the sample. I'll take and I might go to a bit different screen. All right, so I've got 10 microliters of that. I'll just put it back in because I think I should have done this first. I should have just given it a quick vortex, make sure I homogenized it all. What I'm showing you is, is a strategy for troubleshooting yourself in real time. And I'm actually not using that much liquid. So there we are, I've just vortexed it to homogenize it. Now I'm going to take 100 microliters, like that. I'll put it into a clean tube, like that. I'm going to be careful when I put this tube down. I'll bring that tube. I'm going to just move this right out my way so I don't pick it up by accident, because that can happen. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab 900 microliters of the buffer. So there's my 100 microliters. Now I'll grab my 900 microliters. So now I've gone from 1 in 10 dilution to 1 in 100 dilution. So there it is. I'll vortex it. Right, done. I'll put that down in front of you. Now what I'm going to do is get a clean pipette tip, that is. I'll take 50 microliters of this. I will go continue. Now I'm going to very carefully make sure I choose 100 because I have gone to a 1 in 100 dilution, which I've now chosen 100. I'll go start measurement, and off it goes. and it's come back at 6,700 Scoville heat units. So what I want to now do is just show you what that looks like. So let me just think quite aloud to myself, which is, so I'm just going to go to screen 2. I'll just go into reports. I'll just do a refresh, and I will just look at this B100, and then I can sort of see my peak, my peak 3, 2, and sorry, my peak 1, peak 2, and peak 3. So I've got my 3 peaks for capsaicin, so I can see my capsaicin. I can see my peak height here. I can go in here and I can have a quick look at my that I did do my 1 in 100 dilution, and I can sort of close that off. So in summary, I just, when I look at one of the tests, let's say, it's just flat. It reminds me very much of somebody who's tested just buffer. They did make electrical contact, I know that, but it reminds me of just a test with buffer. You can clearly see that, in fact, I have a sample that's kind of similar to what they're probably testing. And when I I tested it at 1 in 10, it was a little bit high. I follow the instructions on the device, but I checked the data. I checked the signal before, and then I did a 1 in 100. You saw how I did it, and then I got a reasonable signal. So hopefully that will help in the real time. I think it's important to, you can use the app, but you also got the whole power of actually looking at things in the cloud and saying, is this making sense to me? So if you have any technical questions or need technical support from ZP, please don't hesitate to reach out to us. Okay, thanks very much.